Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back now with Marsha Vanwynsberghe once again here talking in regards to, well, how she can help us. She's a storytelling business coach, a speaker, author, a friend of the show, podcaster, so much more. Welcome back to the show today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Just to point out right off the top, marshavanw.com is the website. And
Yes.
hello, and introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. I'm thrilled to be here. I am a storytelling business coach, life adversity coach. I really help women, men and women, but women pull the lessons out of their story so that they can truly build an authentic business. And you know what? It's just been such a beautiful ride. And I've been watching lately as I have clients who are building podcasts and coaching business and speaking and published authors. And there's so much power. I just think even more so now with learning how to share our authentic self, share our stories, share those parts of ourselves, and just learn how to do it.
Got it. And also life adversity coach, one of your other and many titles, I should say. Do you have an area of focus for us today that you wanted to share with our listeners?
Well, I think that the one thing that has come up, I just take the lessons that I keep hearing over the week. And one of the things that I speak a lot about is ownership, because owning our choices, that's Own Your Choices, Own Your Life is my name of the podcast. But the word ownership really was a pivotal point when I could learn how to embody it. So I've received a number of questions this past week saying, okay, but how do you do that when you're living in a difficult story? How do you do that when you feel like life is spinning out of control? So I just thought I'd share a couple of things and a couple of tips that I have learned along the way that might help some of the listeners.
Great. I would love to hear them.
Awesome. So the first thing is that I would ask you to do an inventory of where you are feeling anxiety or where you are feeling a sense of blame for someone else, for the circumstances, for something that is happening in your life. Because when we sit in blame, that is a victim mentality and mindset. And I do not judge that because I have spent many of time there. But when we sit in that space, we are subconsciously waiting for someone else's behavior to change or waiting for our circumstances to automatically change. And we all know that is not how change happens. It happens when we shift out of that space. So the first thing I always say is take a look at where you are sitting in blame, because subconsciously you are waiting for that circumstance, the people, whatever it is, to change before your life will change. So that'd be the first step that I would say.
Okay. Step two.
Step two then is looking at doing almost a personal inventory. What is working in your life? What is not working? What are you happy with? What do you want to create change with? And, we maybe take a second and look at what brings you joy. What do you like doing? Because really, you might even only have to make a couple of small changes in order to look at that. And then I would say step three is really looking at where can you take full ownership for yourself in your life? Being completely vulnerable, because that is what I like to do to help people, is the fact that I spent a long time blaming others for where my life was at. And that meant all of my energy, all of my resources went into blaming everyone else and then saying, I don't have any time for me and this isn't fair. And really, I was the one who was putting that energy everywhere and not putting it back on myself. So that's ownership. That's a big part of ownership. And ownership is also taking a look at the circumstances and saying, okay, I can't control X, Y, and Z. No matter what I try and do, I cannot control that. But I can control how I respond to X, Y, and Z, and what I choose to do with it, and how I choose to take care of myself, and how I choose to show up, and what I accept for my own life.
And now, obviously, it takes a long time to get to this place. Not everybody can understand the concept of ownership, and listening to you. And I know I have issues with that as well. Yeah. The negativity, the blame, that I don't have the time, but you got to own it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much power, honestly, when you stop and take ownership. There's so much power. And when you do that, I think you actually step into a very different version of yourself. And that version is the person who can actually create change, make a difference, use their gifts, create impact. And I think then you start to see how much stronger you truly are. Now, that doesn't mean, please don't ever listen and think that, okay, that was easy, or that's an easy fix. It's not easy. None of it's easy, but it's still a choice. And it's a choice that we decide every single day. So sometimes as a recommendation, I would say is on the daily, when you find yourself in a space of blame, frustration, anxiety, anger, resentment, comparison, all of those things, I would stop and say, wait, what am I not owning right now? And how can I own or take ownership in order to create change? Because whether you're looking at just learning how to overcome your story, or you really want to take it and build a business, that's a skill set you're going to have to keep using.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to number 3. What's next? Nervous.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. And then I think I just take it back to the other piece is taking inventory right now. The other thing, we're in Canada and we just finished an election last night. I'm not going to go politics, but we definitely the frustration is real right now. People are really, really responding in ways that I wish you could almost show a mirror and say that you are literally giving your power away every single time you rant or lose your mind.
Oh yeah, we've had the same thing with our election. Please, come on. You know about Donald Trump, I'm sure, and Joe Biden. We're neighbors here. Yeah, it's the same thing. Got it.
We're neighbors. And when you do that and you're just giving it away over and over and over. And then you know what, you end up feeling like, if you feel like, I don't have the energy to do this anymore, because you need to do it a different way. That's right. You don't have the energy anymore because you're using it in ways that are not serving you to move you forward. And so that was just the other piece that came in. So when I said taking inventory, and I was doing a video and coaching this morning, I said, you need to take inventory with what is working, what's not working. And that doesn't mean we're in this culture that we have to do more with our inventory. We have to look at it and go, oh my gosh, I have to do this more. I have to do that. It's not. Sometimes it's actually what can come off of our plate. What do I not need to be doing? What do I not need to be focusing on? And a big part of that is, I think we've talked about it before, but being super intentional about social media. You can be super intentional. You can post, you can pour back into others, you can share, but if you fall into a trap of consuming, then that brings up all of the other things. And that's not a good space of using energy either.
Social media, don't get me started. I know too many people who consume themselves with it. That person, I post and I run. That's the person I am. But I know people in particular, like my son's father, who just sits there.
Oh God.
And I'm like, but the kids are doing this. It's like, I'm just checking the news. I'm like, that's not the news. I'm like looking at people's business. Oh, it's a lot of news articles. I said, but come on, what would you be doing now if that didn't exist? I mean, yeah.
Oh, it leads to a lot of consumption. And again, going back to inventory, when I feel myself in a negative space, a frustrated space, I don't like how I'm showing up. I'm like, well, what do I need to change? That is usually one of the first things. I find myself consuming way too much. And it's like, nope, please let me consume something that is actually going to move the needle forward in my life, like consuming, whether it's a podcast or books or something to help me to move my own needle forward. If it doesn't move the needle forward, then you actually have to be very brutally honest with yourself and say, that's enough of this. It's not going to change my life.
Got it. Wow. All right. So yeah. So those of you home consuming yourself with those things, not good. And how do you get through to someone to help identify these things? I mean, it's hard. Mm-hmm. People may not even know they're consuming their time unwisely like this. Yeah.
Well, I think if we're in a space of consuming, I think we are also in a space of, like, again, sitting, waiting, watching the world to change for our life to change, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is like waiting for like when the election is done, then this is going to happen. Well, no, I still get up and do the same thing because I still am responsible for myself. Like I know there's a lot of things I can't control, but I still am responsible for myself. And that mindset is, this is just my own opinion. That mindset is super important, whether it's my health, whether it's my relationships, whether it is my, my personal self-care, whether it is my business. That ownership is important for all areas of our life, is taking that ownership piece. And whether you're in a relationship, is about like, it's not my job to take responsibility for my husband, and it's not his job to take responsibility for me.
Very true. All right.
And I think now that also means we have to be open to hearing, right? We have to be open to receiving if we want to create change. If we don't want to, then I love you, but if we don't want to create change, it's all good.
Wow.
But then we can't complain with where we're at.
True. Very
in
true.
my own opinion. If we're not willing or open to taking things in differently, then we also shouldn't be in a space of complaining. But that's not going to stop people. We all know that. So it's really taking that ownership piece. And I can say, honestly, I have seen people with unbelievable stories, extraordinary circumstances, who have gone on to create massive, massive impact in their life and massive change. And I look at it and go, here they are with these stories and circumstances that they've lived that would knock most people out ever. And they're doing incredible things with it. And yet some people over here have what would be considered fairly minor, but they're in that space. I think that just shows the difference of mindset. I'm not comparing the two situations. It's just really, we have the opportunity to make it however we want to make it, to make the impact that we want, to change the story. But when you learn how to shift that thinking, you really can make a big difference in your own life. And as soon as you start to move the needle forward, you start to see what is possible. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And, you just we always get to choose what story we're feeding.
Yeah. Well, with mindset, for example, any tips or advice to those how today listening here at home, how can we start changing our mindset? Is there anything we should be doing in the morning, in the night, routine wise? Could you give us some advice on that?
Absolutely. These are things that have worked for me. I've been in all ranges of the mindset, so I know what it's like to be in some low spots as well. Consuming, again, going back to first, what are you consuming? Other things that I know work, you just find a combination of things that work for you, whether it is certain meditations, even just like breathing for 2 minutes. I think I read yesterday that deep breathing for 90 seconds completely changes your nervous system. So if you're feeling yourself anxious, if you're feeling yourself anxiety in that space, you can't make great decisions from that space. And you will be in a space of not probably being proud of how you're responding to. I know I'm not. When I'm in that space that I'm not handling well, it's like, okay, wait, what am I not doing? So other things for mindset is looking at journaling. And journaling, here's a thing, I might kibosh what a lot of people think on journaling, but it's not just a thing of writing down 3 gratitudes and saying affirmations and expecting your life to change. That's not how it works. I think journaling is an opportunity to really dump out the things that are not serving you in your mind, like some of the thoughts you might be having. Like really, sometimes I give myself a paragraph of what am I actually thinking today? Like, let's be real for a second. What am I actually thinking about myself? What am I stressed about? And I write it down. And the reason I do that is because when I can look on the piece of paper that that's actually what my thoughts are, now I can look at it and go, well, that's ridiculous. I don't actually believe that, but that's what's there. We have to clear it. We have to clear it first. And then I focus on gratitudes. And then I focus on what I call future scripting. And scripting is like what I am creating, the energy of what I'm living in. So that's a lot of subconscious work. Other things that help with mindset are meditations, tapping. EFT tapping can really help change your subconscious mind, what you're reading, what you're taking in, and really deciding that you are a product of what you're creating, not a product of your circumstances.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Those are some of the main things I would say.
Do we have any more steps? What were we on? Was that 3 or 4? Wait,
one of the worst things, I started with a great intention of points, and then it's like, I don't know, was that 10?
I know, but it's great conversation. Okay, good.
It's all good. It's all good. The other thing that I would say as far as mindset that has been a real simple shift, but really important, is not being attached to the outcome, like not being attached to the outcome. I can control how I show up every single day. I can control the energy that I put out, how I take care of myself, my self-care, all of those things. I cannot control how it is going to be in the outcome.
Be perceived. Yeah.
And so for some people, what happens is that we get so wrapped up in, I'm going to do a launch of a program. I'm going to have 10 people. These are the 10 people that I'm going to have. And then you put these blinders on business wise of how it's going to work. And then all of a sudden, when you put those blinders on, you miss all the other opportunities. So by being so attached to how it's going to happen, you're not allowing other things to come in place. And we have, I have 2 podcasts. My second podcast is Everybody Holds a Story. We launched a collaborative book that we were filling. It's completely filled now. And there's an example that I wanted to give with this, is that we put this group together, invited all these people in. It was beautiful, people who wanted to be part of it. But then you're watching and you're like, okay, out of the people that actually signed up, more than half of them were people who just messaged and said, hey, I saw what you've got. Could we get on a conversation and chat? If I had stayed so attached to the outcome, I would have never left the opportunity for other people to come in.
You're right. Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so I think that is a future event, something that we can't control. So putting all of our energy there is not a way to help us live our best mindset.
Got it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello?
No. Yes. It's just echoing and a little bit of a delay.
No, I just heard something. Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. It is my connection. I apologize. Okay. I'm just moving it around. The cable here. Great.
All good.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to make sure we're being heard here. And again, if you're just tuning in, let's remind everyone who we're speaking to, your website, if you don't mind as well, please, Marsha, share that with us.
Absolutely. It's Marsha Vanwynsberghe. My name is Marsha Vanwynsberghe. My website's Marsha Vanwynsberghe, and I'm a storytelling business coach teaching you how to pull the lessons out of your story to be authentic, to build a business.
Got it. Fantastic. And I mean, we're talking today about so much, but you're also your own podcaster. Look at that serious microphone she has. For those of you listening, she's also a podcaster. We're doing a live Zoom as well. What else did you want to share with our listeners?
Well, the other thing that I wanted to chat on when we were talking about expectations and holding on to that and the attachments is, this is just a one piece that goes in with everything else that we were talking about today, is when we always put these expectations on ourselves, right? We put these expectations of how we should show up, how we should perform, what we should do. And that's all feature-based. So what I would encourage people, and okay, we put the expectations on ourselves and we put the expectations on others. This one can sting a little bit, is that when we put those expectations on others and then we're frustrated that they don't live up to the expectations that we have, yet their behavior is completely consistent, that is not like, that's part of the story that we can get wrapped up in with other people. So what a lot of times I say is, can we look at it instead and actually raise our standards instead of the expectations? So raising our standards goes back to the mindset piece and everything we just talked about. That's how we show up. That's how we can make a difference. That's how we can, like, our standards are what we choose to do every single day. And by raising our standards, that's living in the present instead of raising our expectations, which is based in the future. So that's all part of learning how to own your story and learning how to go through those processes, because really what you're doing is you're breaking patterns. You have to break patterns and interrupt patterns that we know are not working, not doing it from a space of beating ourselves up, being shameful, hard on ourselves, because that solves nothing, but from a space of recognizing that that is what we are doing and then interrupting the pattern in order to create a different solution or a different ending, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Wow. And for those out there listening, what is your background? What brought you into this field? Would you mind just giving us a little, you're extremely knowledgeable, obviously, with what you do. You're an expert in your field, but is this something you always wanted to do, be a life adversity coach, or how did you fall into this spot in your life?
Well, I think if fall is an interesting choice of words, I think life pushed me this way.
Okay.
And I think it pushed me and I had to choose how to respond. I've been coaching and mentoring people for, almost 28, 29 years. in different areas of post rehab, physical rehab, and some clients learning how to walk again. So definitely it was physical, but definitely mental. There was a lot of mental challenges as people were trying to overcome life altering injuries. And so I really have been doing it for a number of years. But then as our life pushed us into a position where we were dealing with teen substance abuse with our kids that came out of left field, it was not something I ever saw coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it just became a massive issue that affected our entire family. I did all of the things that I have given you or shared advice on. I did all of them. I was literally living in victimhood, angry at the world, fighting, trying to do it by myself, being the perfectionist, trying to change everyone else. And none of it worked, to be completely honest. None of it worked. Instead, I came to a turning point where I stepped back and went, okay, I can control myself. I can own my own choices. I am responsible for and those are the mantras that I had to do. So when I say interrupt the pattern, that's what I had to do. Every time I could feel myself falling into victimhood, angry, frustrated behavior of everyone else, I'm like, no, where can you own your own choices and take responsibility for yourself? And that's what I had to do. And ironically, that is what my kids had to do too. That is like literally what they had to do too. And so that's where it all started from. And as I started,
then you wrote a book. I mean, so for those of you that want more information, can you tell us the title of the book and of course, where they can find it?
Absolutely. It's called When She Stopped Asking Why. And that title is really important because I was in a space of blaming, a lot of blame. And when I realized that the why wasn't serving me, the why is only serving us when we're going towards a goal. When we're asking why about something has happened, that just keeps us stuck. So as soon as I recognized that I was continually asking that, every time I asked myself why, it was like, no, what can I do next? What can I do? And that became the whole basis for my book. So the book was really written about my story. And a lot of people perceive that it really is only about dealing with teen substance abuse, and it's not. It's what do you do when life forces you down a path that you didn't want? It wasn't one you expected, right? Which is life is always going.
Happens. Yeah. But so I'm on your site again. I pulled it up. When she stopped asking why. I don't know if you could see it here. It's so hard to see on the screen, but now, I mean, amazing. Your honesty, your, sharing your story like this. I know it wasn't hard, but you can go to Amazon.com, right? Get it there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty impactful. And I haven't read the book. I just read the synopsis. So I know, and you shared your story with us here before. So I personally know, but maybe some of our listeners don't. So I want to make sure everyone's getting the information. So that's your book. What else are you working on now? And you're obviously here helping so many people.
Mm-hmm. If I can share one quick thing about the book you just made me think of when you shared it, is I went from being a hider in my entire life and a victim and frustrated. And when my book was getting ready to release, I had an incredible author reach out and say, I looked at it. I know what you're doing. I need you to change the cover. And I'm like, change the cover to what? And he said, your face. It needs to be your face. I'm like, you're out of your mind. I am not putting my face on the cover of a book. And he said, it's exactly what you have to do. If you want people to appeal to the fact of being a mother and it's your story, it needs to be your face. So it delayed my book by about 2 months. And we changed the whole cover about a week before it was supposed to come out. And it was the best decision I ever made, because when I look at it, it allows people to see that this is a real person. This is real stories. This has affected. So can you change your story? Yes. Like, I completely changed my story. It is possible. It is doable. I never would have thought I would have done something like that. So I just wanted to share that piece, because people say to me all the time, well, I'm not as confident as you are. I don't have as much courage. And I'm like, those are all muscles. You have to grow them.
Yeah.
You don't have them. You have to grow them. So I just wanted to share that piece. We are launching our next collaborative book, and this one just filled for Everybody Holds a Story. We do have another one coming up, because the stories of people who've been reaching out to us, their body stories, and they're sharing the traumas and the challenges that they've come through. Just the hope they're giving other people is so beautiful. And I think right now, especially now, we need to feel more connected to each other. And that comes from our stories. I think that's how we connect with each other more, because we realize that we're so much more alike than different.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
Marsha, we have 3 minutes left in the show. What else do you want to share again to our listeners and your audience today about how you can help, why you can help, and what would you like to say and leave the show with?
I think my big thing that I would love to leave the listeners with is that if you feel called to do something with your story, if you've ever felt yourself say, like, I feel like this could help someone or this could do something, then please do. And I say this with the most amount of love, please don't be selfish with your story. If you've made it to the other side of your story, someone somewhere is truly praying for a solution you're holding on to. Please don't hold on to it, because when you're holding on to it, that is keeping that solution for you when it could help people that you don't know. And in a quick nutshell, that please don't let the judgments, opinions, criticisms of people that don't even mean anything to you stop you from living your life, because this total stranger out here could be the one that reaches out to you and says, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that, because you've helped me more than you know. I get them all the time. And I look at it and I save them, because they remind me that when I don't feel like showing up, or I'm really getting caught up in someone else's thoughts, that we can support people we've never even met yet.
Wow. Yeah, I believe the whole world is connected. I really do. And, during the pandemic, we've talked about that before, but this whole past year and a half, I mean, everyone in the world has been affected with this, and it's changed so many people's perspective. And to talk about adversity, right? I mean, people losing jobs, losing family members, but it put a whole new inspiration inside of me. And I think a lot of people about becoming a better me. Life is so preciously short, a better mom, better everything, because, if there's something you want to do, you could do it, right? I mean, you're there to coach them along the way, but it's so true. Why not? Clearly it is possible. You gotta put in, you could do it. And that's why you're here, to help people like me who want
Yes.
more. But yeah, really.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And I love that you've said that, because it just, again, gives permission to somebody else, but no one's going to come and do it for you. Like, no one, I love you, all of you, but no one's going to come and do it for you. You have to do it yourself. You have to decide to step up and go first, and that you are worthy of creating the life that you want to live. And it is possible. It is 100% possible.
And a lot of people were so scared into change, but losing job, having to get a new career, having taught people that we can go above and beyond, we can do more, be more. And, it's scary, to make changes in your life, but a lot of us are forced into it. So it just shows, it gives more people evidence, more proof and validation, like it's possible. Because I know so-and-so who it happened to, and I know, so that's much to be said for that. So Marsha, how do we contact you for your expertise and guidance?
You can reach out to me on my website is marshavanw.com. Anywhere on social media, start typing Marsha Van W, or my podcasts are Own Your Choices, Own Your Life, and Everybody Holds a Story.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day. Miss MarshaVanW.com.
Yep, you got it.
Have a great day. Thank you. And to all of our listeners, please stay tuned. More of the show is on the way. Don't go anywhere.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.